Welcome in to the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show. Hit that intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog Fantasy. And just a reminder, use promo code TRIPLE. They're going to match your deposit up to $100. If you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see that we did a football underdog best ball recently, which they got you covered with everything. If your team is eliminated in our home league like Arts and you're done with the fantasy baseball season, they got you covered with football. And when you do fantasy football and your team loses in the first round, they got you covered with baseball and all in between. That laugh you heard is from Marty Party.
Yeah.
Raising it in D-Town. What's going on?
Man, talking about first round exits really reminds me of every fantasy football team I've ever had. That's why I had to bow out. I am not good at fantasy football. One of the worst.
Fantasy football is more luck than skill.
Just no matter what, man. No matter who I draft, something bad's going to happen. So I bowed out. But yeah, great to be here. Great to be talking baseball. It's a playoff push, last few weeks of the season. Thank you for those listening. You are the true fantasy baseballers.
Yeah. And we go until the end of the week because even if 0 people listen to us, we love fantasy baseball in itself. Right, Elsie?
That's right. You ready for some hardcore fantasy content? I'm sitting here this week. I got a new piece of merch, not merch, a pair of Alan Trammell signed photo my sister got for me at the Little League World Series. He was one of the guys there. It's I can't believe she got to meet Alan Trammell. That's big time. He was there for the Little League World Series. I think he was commentating the games. If you can get to Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the Little League World Series, if you are a baseball fan, it is one of the purest and most enjoyable baseball experiences you will ever get to. And you can bump into guys like Alan Trammell. They're just hanging out. They're just hanging out there. You know, they're chilling. It's free to go. You don't have to pay a dime to get into the games. It's an amazing experience. And I was able to get a little bit of cool signed material from Alan Trammell from that.
Art, I have 2 things on that. Number 1, did you ever slide down the Williamsport Hill on like a piece of cardboard or anything? Have you done that?
Yeah. That's what you do, man.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
It's usually full of 10 to 12-year-olds. So
and then
if you don't do it once when you get there,
true.
You didn't have the experience. But you go there like when you're a high schooler in the area and there's nothing else going on.
Yeah,
you go there, talk to some people that you don't know from other school districts, make some new friends. It's a good time.
I will say this about Alan Trammell. I got to meet him as well. Back in the day, I grew up in Southgate, Michigan. There was I was varsity baseball, not to brag, but we had a training camp. And him and Alan Trammell came down with Brandon Inge, old Tigers third baseman,
Nice.
and shook hands and, got to meet him. Super nice guy and Hall of Famer. Shout out to him.
It sounds like I need to meet Alan Trammell. If you're listening to this pod, I'm the one that's left out. Guys, we're going to go from some Little League guys that did stuff in their past. And by the way, watching the Little League World Series is awesome. Some of the pitches that these teenagers can throw, the movement, the velocity. If you watch on the scoreboard at the top, they'll tell you how fast it would be in terms of an MLB pitch.
That's cool when they do that.
So just knowing that these pitchers can throw faster than I ever could is a little bit disappointing.
I think I know the answer to this, but can you bet on it?
I think so.
Really?
I would have guessed no.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never felt guilty enough to bet on the Little League World Series. That would be bad.
That's pretty bad.
Because people would be getting mad.
That's like drinking a beer at your kid's Little League game. It's like the same vibe.
Love seeing the Rangers choke in September. Go Stros.
Wow.
The Rangers need a little bit of love. The Astros are always good.
Yeah. It's that pitching staff and that bullpen. The Rangers bullpen has completely fell apart. I don't know what they're going to do. They can't fix it. It's too late.
It is too late. All of them, including Max Scherzer tonight, have imploded.
Ooh, I got Max in the league. Rough.
But guys, we're talking about our WOW players because these are guys that are hopefully helping and not hurting you down the stretch. And these are typically under-owned or under-rostered players compared to where we think they should be. I never think we were talking about this late in the season with Royce Lewis, but here we are. The last 14 games, he's hitting 316 batting average, 18 for 57, 7 home runs, and 3 of those have been in grand slams, 22 RBIs, and for the season, batting 318, 370 OBP, 541 slug, but 6.5% walk percentage, 23.4 K percentage, and a 371 BABIP. Marty, does that equal regression to you?
It will, I think, in the long run. But for what the 24-year-old's doing right now, you got to hold on to him. The sprint speed's fine, 76th percentile. So as far as him, the BABIP, it's going to go down to 300, 310 with his speed. But where you got him, you picked him up off the waiver wire, right? Or you spent some fab on him. So you're going to be holding on to him for the rest of the year. And the Twins are fighting for a playoff spot. So he's going to be in there every day.
Agreed. You didn't spend a high draft pick on him likely. You either spent fab or you got him in a trade, maybe if you bought low. Props to Royce Lewis. He's torn his ACL twice, and for him to come back is one thing, but for him to put up these numbers, albeit a small sample size, 46 games, really just shows that prospect pedigree, and somebody that I'm definitely wrong about. So I'm willing to admit it when I am. Continue it, Royce.
We also had one of his hits, 114 miles an hour off the bat, too. I mean, the guy can crush.
They put 20 on the Indians yesterday. Did you see that? Lucas Giolito's first start. Man.
Yeah. Speaking of Lucas Giolito, he tweeted about him today.
Yeah.
Mr. D. Mendy did.
And speaking of D. Mendy, David's back in the house.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
David.
Baby just went down, so I thought I'd hop in for a few minutes. The plan is to be back next week, so I figured I needed to warm up the vocal cords a little bit.
Very smart.
Absolutely. Good call on that one.
David, you're taking my WOW players this week. This is a little role reversal, so we'll go to you next, and we're going to give it to you on the fly. Jason Dominguez, a.k.a. The Martian, finally getting the call up. First 4 games, he has a hit in each of those 4, but for the season, 225, 2 homers, 4 RBIs. Notable that his first at-bat was a home run off Justin Verlander, so pretty storybook beginning to his career. And he's hitting 3rd the last 3 games after hitting 5th in that debut. He's improved his walk percentage in the minors from going to about 10% this year in 118 games, but that K percentage is at 25.6. And David, this is someone that me, you, and Marty saw in Arizona play. It looked at times that he was lacking effort. Somebody that I think from his name and from his physical standpoint has kind of gotten him to where we are today. But what do you think he can provide for the rest of the season?
I mean, he just hit another home run tonight. 3 for 4 with a homer. Batting average up to 333. He's actually hitting 3rd, believe it or not, in that Yankees lineup. So if that's not a confidence boost from the organization, the fact they have him hitting behind Aaron Judge and ahead of Gleyber Torres, that's already a big deal in itself. But Jason Dominguez, you already know he was one of the most hyped prospects even just a couple of years ago, but he's been down in the minor leagues for so many years now. And when we did see him in the Arizona Fall League, he was having some defensive problems. But I remember the Welsh saying when we were talking with him about it during the game, he said, man, he's just disinterested out there. This is like I think it was his 2nd or 3rd Arizona Fall League. And he was like, man, like you can just tell he doesn't want to be here. And like, not in a bad way, but like, he was like, it's one of those things like you guys like imagine when you had like PE class and you were like the 12th grader in like the 9th grade class. And you were just like, man, like I shouldn't be here right now. Like I should be with the older group or whatever. I think that's kind of how he felt. But man, like he really turned it on the second half of the year in AAA. And he's somebody that is going to be somebody I would think is going to start the year with the club next year, barring a really bad spring training. And I'm sure he'll be someone that's pushed up draft boards as the season comes along too. But the power is legit. Obviously, the Yankees trust him hitting, again, third, and he's somebody that's going to be very interesting to talk about in the offseason.
He is. And David, I mean, you brought up a point that physically he's bigger than a lot of these major leaguers right now. And he's kind of shows the true three strikeout out, or the true three come outcome of walk at 15%, striking out, and he hasn't taken a walk so far in the majors through 5 games, by the way, or a home run. So definitely a polarizing figure, and someone I know the Yankees are hoping they pan out.
One thing too, just I'll add too, had 109 games in Double-A, a 254 average, a 781 OPS, 15 homers, 66 RBI, 37 steals. But then since July 1st, that went up to a 331 batting average with 5 homers and 19 steals. Triple-A was only 9 games, but he had 10 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, hit 419. So basically, just obviously the Triple-A numbers are only 9 games, but in Double-A, after July 1st, he really went on a tear, and that's what he's kind of been carrying now to the big league. So yeah, someone very interesting to watch.
Well said, David. You've been documenting him for a while in the call-up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of hyped minor league prospects get called up or get talked about on that show. So yeah, it's definitely somebody that's going to be fun to talk about this offseason.
He is. And we're talking about another youngster, Ronnie Mauricio. So first 4 MLB games, a 400, 467 line, no home runs, 1 RBI, 1 run, 2 steals. And looking at the 116 games in AAA, a 292, 346, 506 triple slash, 23 homers, 71 RBI, 76 runs, 24 stolen bases. So balanced in all 5 categories there. Marty, the Mets are tanking, but the Mets are tanking, but Ronnie Mauricio is hot. What are your expectations for him rest of the season?
Hard to say. He's got a batted ball profile that's not one that I generally like for 5 categories. He's so far in the major leagues, he's hit the ball on the ground 77% of the time. Producing, his max EV is 117 though, but when you hit it directly into the ground, that's not going to be going very far. That's one of the reasons why he hasn't hit any home runs, is that he's hitting the ball way too many ground balls. But with that max EV, with the ability to turn on the ball, his home run per fly ball should be pretty high, but he has to start hitting some fly balls. Interesting that he already has 2 steals, and he was able to put up 20 steals in each of the last 2 minor league seasons. You look at his running speed, it's only in the 35th percentile of major leagues so far this year. So I wonder if he's going to be able to keep up those stolen bases. But I do think with his ground ball percentage, with his exit velocity he's going to be able to keep that batting average up, keep the BABIP up pretty good, because he doesn't strike out too much. But I do wonder when the power is going to show up, and if he's going to be able to turn that minor league power into major league power, unless he starts hitting a little bit more fly balls. Rest of the season, he's hitting the bottom of that Mets lineup. Probably not going to produce a ton of counting stats. But talent like this, number 4 prospect in the Mets organization, they're giving him some run. I think you put him out there. I picked him up in a couple of leagues last weekend. I didn't put him out to beginning of the week because the Mets only had 2 games in the first 4 days, but I'm definitely putting him out there this weekend to see what I can get from him the rest of the season, hoping I can catch a little lightning in a bottle.
I just want to add one thing, because Art brought up the exit velocity. Do you guys know just how hard he hits the ball, especially this season? So Ronnie Mauricio has a ball that he hit 117.3 miles per hour. Not only is that the hardest hit ball in the major leagues this season by 3 miles per hour, it's the hardest hit ball in the major league since 2021. So Ronnie Mauricio, I think, is the real deal. And I'm actually my old coworker was a Mets fan, and he was talking about Ronnie Mauricio. Like, this is the guy that's going to, people aren't talking about him yet, but this dude is an absolute freak. And you've seen it, just glimpses of it. He's actually my favorite of the baby Mets. There's, Brett Beatty, him.
That graphic is so stupid.
Ronnie Mauricio is my favorite of the baby Mets. So I think he's going to be the one I'm going to draft the most of next season. And I think he's going to be the one. Maybe we'll rank him and we'll see how we all feel. But I think he's got the most tools. And
David, quick
What?
question: baby piranhas or baby Mets?
I mean, I always like the baby piranhas, but still.
What's that?
Remember the Nick Punto, Jason Bartlett, and Luis Castillo? They were called the baby piranhas from Ozzie Guillen.
No, I must have missed that.
That's a throwback, man. Love those guys.
I thought that was a Legends of the Hidden Temple reference.
Not a bad reference either to go to. That was a good show.
Wait, so before we go to the pitching side, I want to talk about probably the two most disappointing pitchers this year, Alek Manoah and Lucas Giolito.
I disagree. I think Lance Lynn needs to be in that conversation too.
No,
Wait,
Lance
what?
Lynn has provided some
You
good
can't
flashes.
put Lance Lynn in this conversation.
Lucas
Lance Lynn
Giolito
actually
has
a
like-
Lance
job.
Lynn has a worse ERA than Lucas Giolito.
Lucas
Yeah, but not since
Giolito
he's
has
been on
like
the
an 8.
Dodgers.
Lucas Giolito has like an 8 ERA since being traded from the White Sox.
Lance Lynn has the second worst qualifying ERA in all of baseball. How is he not in this conversation?
He's pitched some good games, but he's given
Just
up a
put
lot of
6
home
earned runs against the Marlins today.
He goes deeper in games than Giolito does. Giolito gets bombed.
I mean, Giolito was at least decent to start the
And
year.
also the draft capital. You spent a higher draft pick on
That's
Luigi
where I'm
than you
coming
did
from.
Land.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's no debate. Alek Manoah is the number one for this.
Number one, what? Worst or best?
Like I would say, the biggest bust of the
No,
season.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like next year, where do you think? Do you rank Manoah behind Giolito? I think for sure.
Yeah.
Where
not even
would you
sure.
feel comfortable taking those guys? Let's say that you could have them fall to you. Where would you feel comfortable drafting?
In a 30-round draft, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I need to see some ADP just to get a sense of where the industry kind of has him, and then see if I'm okay at that range or not. I think what's going to happen though is something like Alek Manoah. There's going to be something like he was dealing with an oblique strain that he didn't tell anybody. He went to drive line and added 3 miles per hour on his fastball. There's going to be all these things that come out, and then everybody's going to start boosting him up. I already know it's going to happen.
As Toby said, round 31 in a 30-round draft. I think
Yeah.
I think they're draft champions like in the 40s rounds, guys, at this point right now. Until I find like Giolito's been bad the last 2 seasons, and like you go back 2019, he was horrible. Hard to see. Like he's starting to become one of these guys where you don't know what you're going to get from him. And Manoah, I'm not even sure he's going to be up pitching next year. I mean, I honestly, with how bad he's looked this season, I'm not even sure he's going to pitch next season in the majors.
Do you remember we had this conversation about Lucas Giolito last year? And David, you said the same thing. They'll say like, oh, he never regained his full body from COVID because he had COVID early last season. Or like, oh, he lost weight and he lost velocity because he was battling an illness. We can't make excuses for him anymore. This is a trend.
That's true.
I think all three are on the do not draft list for me. Even Lynn, my boy. It's just there's no reason to.
Yeah, it might be one of those things where the age is starting to catch up with him. But let's talk about 3 pitchers who are probably more useful than the 3 we talked about. And we're starting with Luis Ortiz, and this might be a little bit of a questionable call, but we're at this point in the season where injuries are starting to pile up, and you really just have to play who's playing and producing at the moment. So Luis Ortiz, over his last 2 games, he has 11 innings pitched, 3 earned, only 9 walks to 5 Ks. I will say one of them was a start. One of them was against relief. One was against the Royals and one against the Brewers. Overall, a 4.9 ERA and a 1.74. But with expanded rosters, the Pirates are potentially tanking. He's looked good his last 2 outings. He's in line to make another start next week. Marty, are you risking playing him?
No, only in a 15-team league because I don't have anybody else. Other than that, no.
Is there any optimism with him?
Not this year, not with that team. There's just, I mean, other than the fastball velocity, he does a good job with his ground ball rate. You know, he gets a lot of ground balls, but all of his expected stats, 6.96 xERA. Yes, that does look back to his entire year, but just for now, the only way you would play him if your ratios are completely screwed and you don't care and you can get some Ks, maybe pray for a win or whatever it is. In that instance, yes, but 10, 12 team playoffs, no.
Let me ask you, you're in a 12-team league. He's facing the Giants and you can stream someone. Do you play him? Not a god-awful offense like the A's or the Royals, and not someone where you're like, okay, I don't feel comfortable against the Twins, but a team that's below average right now and trending in the wrong direction.
I think in that scenario where you're not worried about your ratios, that would be the only way. It's kind of a effort play, like whatever, it can't hurt me more than that. That would be the only way.
Yeah, just kind of give some context about maybe the opportunity that you would play him, or if Marty said like it's deepest leagues, it's kind of the effort. I need an outing, and he can give me a little bit of upside.
Yeah, maybe like a 2-start, like in a DC 50, he has 2 starts. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Reese's Cups Olsen. And surprising, Marty didn't want to talk about a Tiger, but David will instead. So the last game at Chicago White Sox, 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, no earned, no walks, and 1 K, which is ironic because the game before that against the Yankees, he had 10 strikeouts and went 4.1 innings. So last game threw 79 pitches, but prior to that, he's gone at least 90 in 4 out of the last 5, even topped 100 one of those games. He's thrown the fastball and slider about 60% of the time, the slider with a 214 XBA, the fastball with a 279 XBA. He is getting hit hard on the sinker. His third most thrown pitch at 20% with a 300 batting average. Last year went 119 innings, which is the most that he went. He's sitting at 116 currently. Detroit really isn't fighting for a playoff spot, so we'll assume that he will have his innings capped at some point. He'll probably go, 90, 95 pitches max. But David, if you're in the playoffs, are you playing him?
So over his last 2 starts, he's got 11.1 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts, only 1 earned run. He was also voted as the Tigers Player of the Week over that time.
Ooh, big accomplishment.
I'd give that for Marty. But he is supposed to line up Friday against Mike Clevenger and the White Sox. So to me, he's strictly a matchup play. And you're getting the White Sox, who I forget, is Reese Olson the lefty? I'm just blanking on that for a second. I'm pretty sure he's a righty. But the White Sox, I think, were striking out like 24% of the time against right-handed pitching over the last few weeks, last time I checked. And Reese Olson does have strikeout potential. We've seen at least 1 or 2 double-digit strikeout games from him this season. So to me, strictly matchups at this point, the White Sox. And obviously with Clevenger, most likely not going to last long into the game, gives him potentially some chance for some run support for a win. If I'm in the playoffs, I am taking a chance on Reese Olson this week in that matchup. I think he will pay off more often than not. Even if he doesn't go necessarily 7 innings like he just did in his last start, I do think he's going to be somebody that gives you a good enough start where it'd be worth starting him.
Yeah, and the White Sox are the team that he played last week that he gave up 1 hit. It is interesting when somebody plays a team twice in a row. Half the people say, well, now they've seen their stuff, and then the other half say they can't hit them again.
So there was a study, and I forgot where I heard it, but they said statistically pitchers do better the second time against teams than they do the first time if they play them back-to-back. And I have to remember where I saw that study, but it actually came out that like they looked at ERA, they looked at WHIP, strikeouts, everything, and that was what it came up with, which is interesting because you think it would be the other way. But I remember that's why they brought it up. And I have to remember where I heard that, but that is something that someone came out and said. It was on a podcast. I can't remember who said it.
So it sounds like Reese Olson is throwing a no-hitter is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying maybe he doesn't go 7 innings with 1 strikeout. Maybe he goes like.
Didn't get my sarcasm.
Haha, yeah, I got you, Doc.
He's had a few weeks off. Give him a break.
Me and David talk every day. He knows my sarcasm.
That is true.
Rounding out the pitchers, Johnny Brito. So he has been pitching in long relief, but over those last 3 appearances, he's 2-0, so he's gotten 2 wins, and he's been piggybacking Michael King a lot as he usually goes 2 or 3 to begin the game. But 9.1 innings over those 3 outings, 1 earned run, 0.77 whip. He has not been striking out a lot. 6 strikeouts over that time to 2 walks. His K percentage is 17.4, so he's pitching to a lot of contact. That includes 1.6 home runs per 9. Now, we did see him earlier this year prone to blowups. He had 4 homers against the Rays earlier this year. He's given up at least 5 earned 4 games. Now, that is worth noting that those were all as starters. we've seen people like Nick Pivetta be more successful when they don't open the game. Art, is that how you're feeling about Mr. Brito?
No, I think he's a pretty desperate ad. I kind of see his role as undefined. He followed Severino after Severino got pulled after 4 innings in his last win, but he has been pitching more effectively. As you see, he's only given up 1 earned run in his last 9 innings. Strikeouts still aren't there. It hasn't been in his last 9 innings haven't produced more strikeouts. I think because of his undefined role and the fact that he doesn't really have great stuff. He's so pitched to contact, even though he did it well. He pitched well against the Astros the last time out, and that looked that against a strong offense like that makes him look good. I think the fact that you don't necessarily know when he's going to pitch or when you should put him in, or if he's going to be in a position to get that win or get more than like 2 or 3 innings. For me, I'm just it's a no for me, dog. I'm gonna say no on Johnny Brito.
Art, does it change it at all if you're in a points league because he has that upside of going 2.1 innings? You know, let's say he gives up 1 earned, maybe strikes out 2 and gets a win or a hold. Are you more okay playing him in that format versus a roto where he could kill your ratios?
I think depending on how you want to use him, if it's like a weekly head-to-head where you're trying to get a win, he's one of the relievers who I think has a better chance of getting a win because he's going to throw a couple of innings. But if you're trying to maximize your relief pitcher, let's say you're trying to use a couple moves per week and maximize your relief pitcher points. Since I don't know precisely when he's going to be pitching, I'm not going to be trying to guess right on when he's going to be pitching, and I'm not going to use him. But if I'm using him for a whole week, just put him in there for the whole week. I think in the course of a week, he'll get 1 or 2 games where he's going to get a couple innings and possibly a win. But I'm not going to try and pinpoint the game where I think, which I often do with relief pitchers, which we'll talk about later about strategy for head-to-head playoffs and stuff. I often try to find relief pitchers for this specific game who might pitch or the next game or 2 who might pitch. And I think he'd be harder to pinpoint on something like that.
Art, you're teasing our future segment.
Did anybody here watch Outer Banks? You guys have never seen Outer Banks?
No.
I've
seen Adam Banks, the forward for the Mighty Ducks.
Well, this is a show on
Art
Netflix.
got it.
It went over Eric and I's heads. This is a show that you and Tyler would like because I feel like we like the same shows.
Is it trashy? Then probably.
Exactly. Yes, it is. But the main character's name is John B. So can we call him John B from now on?
Sure.
I don't hate it.
Okay. So someone that listens to the podcast, please make sure you guys tag us on Twitter if you get the Outer Banks reference because
this is the question I had though. Because it's Jhon, like how we say Jhoan is Johan Duran. Is it Yanni Brito? Are we saying it correctly when we say Johnny? Is it Yanni Brito?
I'm pretty sure I've heard Johnny Brito.
I've heard Johnny, but it wouldn't surprise me if announcers butchered it.
Everyone's saying it wrong, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't.
It was some random white guy saying Johnny every time. Probably not saying it right.
While we're on the Yankees, really quick. Do you guys like Michael King as a starter?
He's okay.
They're stretching him out. What do you think, David?
I feel like he'd be the next Seth Lugo.
That's
Seth
pretty good.
Lugo was kind of in that same role for the Mets, and now the Padres kind of stretched him out. It's Yanni Brito.
It is Yanni Brito.
And now, I mean, Seth Lugo's pitched to like a mid-3s ERA this year and like about a strikeout per 9, which is
he's gone more innings than I thought he would because he's in his mid-30s.
I think Michael King's going to do the same kind of mold, like a strikeout per 9, mid-3s ERA, useful starter. So he might be somebody during draft season that might be a bargain because he's not going to have pitched very many games as a starter by the time we draft.
I see him and Clark Schmidt reversing roles. Like Clark Schmidt started as the
I don't know. Clark Schmidt
5
just pitched over 6 innings today, had like 6 Ks, 1 earned run. When I
a lot of games, though, he's going 3.2, 4.1.
It was 3 earned, but yeah, 6 Ks versus the Tigers.
So, okay, so they left him in because when I looked at the box score, it was 6.1
They left him in one inning longer than they should have. But no, Schmidt, I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise, I think, for most people who picked him up.
Yeah. And especially, when Rodon went down, that became the guy in deeper leagues that a lot of people were targeting with late picks. Just looking at the most added courtesy of CBS every Thursday morning, Jason Dominguez rounding out the list at the top, up 37%, 69% rostered. Nice. Davis Schneider is the second most added player in the last week, up 31% by Rob Schneider.
Davis Schneider, I was watching the clips of it last night. Dying. Davis Schneider is 31% added. Rating PG-13.
Love some Davis Schneider.
We killed this joke so much that Marty and Art just shake their heads now. Do it.
You got a smile out of me.
You know what? I hope he kills it next year so we can talk about him every week.
I might just draft him just so I can talk about him all the time.
When we do our underdog best balls, I'm getting him in every draft.
Yeah, for sure.
Ronnie Mauricio up 19%. Jordan Wicks continuing his stretch up 18%. Matt Manning, JP Crawford, Luis Rengifo, and Jose Quintana. That's making my eyes bleed heading out this list. And then, conversely, looking at the most dropped, you got to be so bad if you are the headline twice. Bailey Ober, once again, the top guy dropped, down another 16%. Julio Urias, who we don't need to say anything besides he is a POS, down 15%. Graham Ashcraft, another 15%. James Paxton, down 12%. Kenta Maeda and Jarren Duran and Jose Urquidy, all down 9%. And then Brandon Williamson, down 9% as well. What I think is interesting to note is when I'm putting in the percentage drops, they get lower each week, which to me shows inactivity in the league, which means that if you are still in, finish out till the end.
Absolutely. I mean, when Ashcraft's being dropped.
Yeah. If Ashcraft's being dropped, then that lets you know that.
No, I was gonna say if he's being dropped just as much as Julio Urias, I mean that shows everything right there. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it obviously does factor in dynasty and keeper formats, but still that percentages should not match up. And then just looking at the team schedule for next week, all teams play 6 or 7 games, so plenty of baseball next week, and hopefully it's during the afternoon so I can watch it while working. Marty,
real quick, I want to bring up Toby's comment. We talked about Tigers pitchers becoming more useful. Why did they pull Alex Fido yesterday after 44 pitches? Do you know?
I didn't see the game, and I didn't hear anything from the Tigers brass. But if I had to guess, it's just the fact that Fido has been seriously injured the last 2 to 3 years, and so they're not fighting for anything. They just want to see what they're getting out of him. With actually no actual information, my guess would be that they're just limiting his innings. Maybe he felt something. Maybe he's a little tired. Whatever it is.
Well, it's also too. Matt Manning pitched an inning today, and then they brought in was it Bo Brisky?
Yeah, Bo Brisky. Yeah, and that's what the staff's known for. This new AJ Hinch. Coming over from the Astros. They've even with Mize before he got injured, everybody, all the young guns, they've tried to limit their pitches as much as possible. It's not really worked. I mean, they're consistently getting hurt. And I think there was another question about Skubal. Was that on there? I think
he said that he likes Skubal.
Skubal hitting a stride to being overdrafted next year. As you guys know, I'm hard on the Tigers. I don't think any of those young pitchers are any good except for Skubal. 2.64 xERA and a 5.2 walk percentage while striking out nearly 29% of batters. Man, he might be worth it. I don't know where he's going to go, but I don't know. I don't know if you're going to have to overdraft Skubal next year. I don't think so. I think he's going to be right where he should be.
The one thing reason I brought it up was because I know someone in our home league got kind of screwed over because of 1 inning pitched and then that counting as a start. So it's really important this time of year, the last few weeks, that if any team like you see like the Tigers are trying to like manage their innings of their young starters, And even if it says they're starting, if you're looking at the history just of what they're doing previously, just keep that in mind, because this is, again, something like that could be the difference between you winning and losing your league. So make sure that if you see the teams kind of starting to manipulate innings with a young pitcher, or they're doing it with some other of their guys, especially the teams that have nothing to play for, that's something I would just make sure rest of season to keep an eye on. I think another team did it today too, where they had like 4 strikeouts in like 2 innings, and someone had a strikeout probably 6. I have to remember the pitcher, but they took him out after like 2 innings too. Like it's that time of year, so just make sure you're staying up to date on the news and teams that might not have anything to play for.
Smash the under.
Yeah, the books might catch up eventually. Like with the Tigers, they might just start lowering their lines altogether, and other teams like that too.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Art, we're going to bring out your dead for last, because I think that this falls into the conversation of playoff strategy. And this was what we were going to end the show with. But for, our home league that me, David, and Art are in, this is the first round of the playoffs. Marty's plays until October, but obviously the playoffs are down the road. So I think David gave a really good tidbit right there of what to pay attention for, especially if you are in a capped number of starts league. Marty and Art, what else would you add to the list?
As far as what to look out for, keeping your ear to the ground with the news. That's going to be the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Looking at, and this is how you win championships. You're going to have to look at your team and don't worry about name recognition. If there's 1-2 weeks left, and Eloy Jimenez, hasn't been hitting over the last 30 days, get rid of him. It's not going to do you any good holding on to them. So not holding on to players that maybe you spend a lot of draft capital on, or, you paid a lot for in fab. If they're not hitting their stride right now, get rid of them. And then the second thing would be staying close to the news as much as possible, because people are moving in and out. There's more. I think who was called up today? Was it Lawler?
Yeah, for the Diamondbacks, Jordan
Lawler.
Yeah,
so people are still getting called up and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So just keeping an eye on the news, and then being honest with your team, and like really going through who's been hot the last 14 days, and not being willing to cut anyone.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, like, as I was talking about earlier, what I like to do, especially when I need to, like in our points league and in other points league, relief pitchers who haven't pitched in like 3 days are going to pitch in the next 1 or 2 days. So if they have and I promise you don't know all the relief pitchers who have like a 1 whip on the season who haven't pitched in 3 days. So just do your homework as you're going through your ads for league, especially if you have if you're able to do ads each day. Get yourself relief pitchers. Those are some sneaky points. You can get an extra 20 points in a week, maybe, especially if in a holds league where you can get points for holds. You get yourself an extra 20 points, and that's the difference in between winning and losing sometimes. Oftentimes, you want to make sure your hitters are you're not having to add a hitter like Mauricio. Like this week in a lot of leagues, if you added Mauricio too early, you only got 2 games in the first 4 days of the week. That's not very good in the playoff scenario, because you need those stats to add up. But in like a roto where I have them and I have someone I can put in for the first half of the week, the weekend, and from now on, then it's very effective. But those are some of the points I'd be looking at schedules big time, making sure you're maximizing those games played, make sure you're maximizing your relief pitchers.
Also, that's what I was going to say, Art, is and David, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
This is a very popular strategy in fantasy basketball, where you look at teams that have a back-to-back Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe you drop someone Wednesday for a team that's playing a Thursday, Friday, and looking at the team schedules. Now, fortunately, each team plays 6 or 7. So, if you're going to want to look at people that play in cores, or a player that has been batting at the top of the lineup that is a team playing 7 games. This week, the Guardians had 7 games, and I made sure that I picked up Ramon Laureano, that I picked up Gabriel Arias, people that even if they're hitting at the bottom of the lineup are going to have more at-bats. So I think that's something to look forward to before the week, is to plan some of your transactions from there. And I think Marty brought up a very good point on another show, to keep at least 1 or 2 open in case people get pushed back. And that's going to be common around this time of year. But to maximize your at-bats that you can get in a points league, because 1 or 2 at-bats, that could be a home run, that could be an extra base hit. And how many times have we lost in a points league by a couple points? So just making sure that you're maximizing those moves.
One thing I was going to add as well is we're luckily in such a day and age where we have almost everything at our fingertips, and there's sources for any type of information you want. One that came to mind because I saw Toby's comment about streaming the long reliever after an opener. There's an account, and I first saw it because I saw Art followed the account, was Opener News on Twitter. And they have like 2,000 something followers, but they do a really good job of quote tweeting the beat writer and then talking about who they expect to follow. And I've actually used some of their tweets picking up bulk relievers to help me in some points leagues with those type of formats. If you're looking, a lot of times you can type in the person's name. If there's a certain player you're interested about, type their name in the Twitter search bar, and then you'll get tons of information. Like you can sort it by the latest, and like as soon as something comes out, you'll be able to get the news on Twitter really fast. You'll be able to follow certain people that you trust that have tons of good information about the player, if they might be on a pitch count or something like that. You also get a chance to also just have, again, all the data and tools. If you can pull up Brooks Baseball, you can see if people's velocity is down from recent starts, and if you're scared about playing them after that. You might, like Nathan Eovaldi might be an example. If you're picking up to start him, his velocity was down a few miles per hour if you look at just the chart on that site. So like use all these resources and tools that you have. They're almost all free. Fangraphs is another one. Like this is the time where like that little bit of extra research can go a long way. So oh yeah, that's right. Toby, I gotta call it X. Yeah, text it on X, but that's all. A lot of times you can get really quick information, as well as lineups too. Lineups, Underdog MLB releases lineups as quickly as any other lineup source thing I've seen. So just be on top of everything with that.
That was literally what I was going to say. Do yourself a favor, get the push notifications on MLB Underdog Fantasy. We're not even pumping them up because they're a friend of the show here, but I have that now, and these are the last few weeks. I don't do it for the whole year. That would be annoying to have 40 different lineups, in front of me. But these last few weeks, go on Twitter, follow them, and then turn on the notifications. That way you don't miss anything.
David, you talk about things at your fingertips. You have your phone at your fingertips. And I want to give a shout out to Tyler Talkman in our league, because he said he sets an alarm for 1 minute after the first game starts when lineups lock in a daily league. So if you want to make a transaction and it's for the next day, so that way it's another way to maximize your lineups, because if you want to get first crack at somebody that's pitching tomorrow, but you don't want to have them added today, that's another thing. But, this is when we have these conversations, it's iron sharpens iron. These are all great things of advice and things, if you implement, they can help give you the edge to win your league. Obviously, you have no control over the players itself, but you have control over the effort that you give.
Yeah, and as we've been talking about all season long, if you're looking for streamers, the number one thing that you can look for is their opponents, WRC plus. Marty talks about it with his 2 starts every week. Look at the WRC plus over the past couple of weeks for their opponents. That is a strong indicator, and it's true. It sounds counterintuitive. The opponent is as important as the quality of the pitcher you're throwing out there. So look at the WRC plus of your opponent if you're trying to stream against somebody. And another, just a little shout out to Fantasy Baseball Beat. Those are all beat writers. Look at our episode list for Fantasy Baseball Beat. If you're trying to find beat writers for teams to see what updates on team news as well, follow all those beat writers that we've interviewed over the past year. That's going to help you as well. That's going to give you some inside info.
There you go, Art. Plug in old episodes. I love it. Marty,
I was gonna say one more thing with that. Like if you really have like a magnifying glass and you're streaming and you're, every single day you might try to look for somebody to stream. Also look to Vegas, the over-unders, look what did they expect? 9.5 runs, 7.5 runs, whatever it is, use those to your advantage, because Vegas knows a lot more than we all would like to think. So always use that as another layer. If you're really trying to, like an everyday, trying to pick somebody up for the day, look at those numbers as well.
And those lines change because usually they're on top of news before we
Yep.
see the notifications. Marty, I want to stick with you because rather than the 2-star pitchers, you're going through an injury report, which I think is important to know at this time of year, especially guys that might not be 100% or there's just so many injuries. It's kind of hard to keep track of them.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of just go down a list here of ones I think are somewhat notable, and I want you guys to pop in. If you off the top of your head, you're like, oh, this person's going to take their place, or I would hold them, or whatever it is. I got to start with Andrew McCutchen. Shout out to him. Not really anything fantasy relevant, but a partial tear of his Achilles. He's at 299 career home runs. It's just kind of a bummer. One of the best baseball players of all time as far as heart and love for the game goes. So
wait,
Andrew
did
McCutchen,
you see his tweet?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. Oh wait, no, I'm not, or whatever.
Yeah, he tweets, "I'm fine" one day ago, and then quote tweets his own tweet. Actually, I'm not.
Yeah. So nothing really fantasy relevant there. But Anthony Rizzo done for the season, so you can feel free to cut him. Kershaw, we talked the lowest velocity of his career his last time out. So 3 miles an hour under what we're used to seeing from him. I don't think there's anything actionable. I don't think you're going to be able to cut him or, you're going to drop him or anything like that. But yeah, that's something to keep an eye out. Soroka, numbness in the fingers. It's not good.
That sounds like a nerve issue.
Yeah, that could be a thoracic outlet syndrome.
Was it Raynaud's? That's what Woodruff has.
Yeah, Woodruff was on the best side of it, though. It was only 3-4 months, and he was able to – he's been pretty good ever since he got back. The other side of that is Strasburg, right?
Yeah,
so, between the Achilles and now this, I mean, you hate to see it. I almost said Justin Bieber. I'm a Justin Bieber fan. Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, both expected back September 20th. Guys, I want to ask you, are they worth holding? Maybe not in a Matt Manning diagnosed with a fractured foot to miss the rest of season. Underdog fantasy, guys. Just sent me that. So sorry to come out of nowhere, but I'm on my phone that popped up. That's what I'm saying. Get the push notifications. You need them. They're right there.
We're plugging them so much tonight.
I know. I'm expecting to check after this. But yeah, do you think they're worth stashing like in a 15-team league? No. Bieber, McKenzie?
No.
Don't worry about it.
It's 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
So
that'd be 2
That's
starts?
a long stash.
Even if they're not,
you might get 2 starts from them. Yeah.
I don't see much upside because they're probably limited coming back right away. Like they'll probably be on a pitch count, especially the Guardians, who I don't think have incentive financially to rush him back. Or it's going to be like Eovaldi where they come back sooner than they should have. And I know Bieber has been out a while, but you end up getting shelled.
Yeah, I think Cleveland still hopes to maybe make the playoffs. So if they were to do that, maybe 2-3 innings just to see what he looks like and then, get him ready for October. Shohei Ohtani, left with oblique tightness. What do you hold on to him and he's on the IL. Obviously if he's playing, you have to hold him, right? Is that kind of what we're doing here?
Oblique is always tricky because you never know how long that's going to linger. Of course, if you have an IL spot, this is not a question. The question is if you don't have IL spots.
Yeah.
But I think with him, he's so dynamic. If you can get him for the last week or 2 of the season, you got to keep that chance if you can possibly hold on to him.
What about his teammate Mike Trout coming back? He says possibly September. He's hoping to get back at this point. I'm holding on to him in my 10-team league. I have an IL spot. He's been sitting down there chilling. If you don't have the IL spot, you letting him go, or are you going to hold on for hope?
I would hold on to Trout for now. With Ohtani, I would pay very close attention. He's out of the lineup tonight against the Orioles. He wasn't in the lineup yesterday. They said he's day-to-day with oblique tightness. And then, this is from the general manager or from the manager. We'll have a conversation, but I think we dodged a bullet. But the test did show a tiny bit of inflammation. The Angels are soon to be eliminated from the playoffs.
Yep.
So, but I think what's interesting about this is they still have incentive to play him to get fans to come out. Because even if they think he's going to leave, fans might say, okay, I want to see Ohtani play one more time. So the Angels don't have incentive to bench him unless they plan on re-signing him to a huge deal. And he is going to need surgery for his torn UCL at some point.
Yeah.
So I can't remember a time I've seen a situation like this. Most of the time I feel like players want to protect themselves, especially before a big payday. But Ohtani seems like he really loves to play.
Yeah, and his agent, he spoke about it as much as he could, but he kind of gave like a conflicting, account of kind of what they're going to be able to do here moving forward. So if you're in a dynasty league, I know we don't really touch on that too much, but I have a big question mark for him in a dynasty league. I don't know what do you want to do with him. But yeah, I would say you probably want to hold him for the rest of the year. DJ Stewart, low back tightness, was not playing for the Mets, but it's considered a minor injury. But he's been extremely hot, so I know anybody who has him is kind of bummed. Speaking of bummed, Carlos Carrasco suffered he fractured his right finger, or his right fifth finger, lifting weights. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. I think is he cooked?
Yeah.
I think he's pretty much
Yeah, so fractured finger out 5 to 6 months. He must have really messed it up.
Did I read that right? Hold on, let me look. No, sorry, I read the wrong thing. 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, he probably dropped a weight on it or something.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, so you probably didn't have him. You can easily cut him. You probably didn't have him on your team anyway. This is just for fun. Trey Turner on the paternity list 9 months after he signed his big contract.
He knew.
Shout out to him.
Celebrate good times.
I have him on my Glarf team. I drafted him in the first round, I think 7th overall. He's been, as you guys know, he's been pretty brutal for the first 5 months of the season. He's finally turning it on, and now he's got to go back home. But yeah, so you really loved what you got out of Trey. O'Neal Cruz, he's gonna restart his running program. Is he worth stashing anywhere, O'Neal Cruz?
No.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
See anything else here? Lane Thomas scheduled day off. He's dealing with a bad back, and he got an MRI. I was bummed. I gotta get this off my chest. I sat him for the weekend, for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because he was day-to-day on Thursday. He hit a home run Friday, he hit a home run Saturday, and then he hit a home run Sunday. I was very upset, so I put him in for Monday, and now he's back on the back to day-to-day. So yeah, you gotta love that. That comes from not paying close enough attention on Friday to see that he was back in the lineup, and that cost me 3 home runs, part of the triple players ball, down to number 2 overall. I'm sinking ship here, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think there's too many thing else out there.
If Bo Bichette is a free agent, you picking him up? He's supposed to be back from the IL Friday.
Yeah, you got to pick him up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
The only reason I would think that you wouldn't is because it would be interesting that he goes with tendonitis, then he goes with a right quadricep strain, and I know Toronto is chasing a wild card spot, but
they're not guaranteed that though.
Yeah, so. It would feel like it's pushing him back if they made him an everyday player, because think about how much you're using your legs and everything you do to swing, to run, to field.
Yeah, I would say at least throughout the entire year, he's not stealing bases anyway. So it's not like if you do plug him back in, you're worried about not having that facet of his game. He hasn't utilized his legs the entire season when it comes to that. So, but yeah, I would definitely pick him up. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah, he's pretty dynamic, and they might not have a lot of DH spots, but I think he'd push whoever they're putting out there at DH into a different role. I'm not sure. Depending on whether he's able to field, I think I would pick him up on the chance that he's able to come back and play full time Friday, because he's so dynamic.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you guys this: is there anyone who's more day to day than Max Muncy? Like off the top of your head, have you ever is there a player you've owned that I see D to D every time I look at that man? And most of the time he plays, but it's just
Eloy's getting up there.
Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah,
he just
gets hurt.
He just played 16 straight games, so I will say that I haven't seen it in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but he's either hurt or it's a maintenance day off from him being hurt.
That's rough. Eloy's tough. Yeah. And Max, I have Muncy on a few squads, and yes, I feel that. I'm checking him. every week.
But yeah, I can't. You guys got anybody off the top of your head that you're holding on to, or you're
just the
stashing
last
in your
one,
IL?
Sandy,
Oh
who
yeah,
besides Garrett Cole, Sandy seems like he's been the most durable pitcher over the last 3 seasons, going on the IL with a right forearm flexor strain. And Craig Mish, beat writer of the Marlins, said, if it's just my opinion, I think that he's out for the rest of the year. Obviously hoping he's wrong, but
Craig's plugged in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. So we love Sandy. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, even if he hasn't been having the best statistical season. Just a great pitcher to watch.
he's better than
Obviously
Lucas
hoping for
Giolito.
the best. He is so much better than Lucas Giolito.
And the Marlins are sitting right now in third wild card position after the Cubs swept the Giants. Yeah, boy.
Cody
I think the Cubs might win the World Series. They are playing so. I'll notice they're down like 4-1, and then they'll win a game like 9-7, and they'll just have scored like 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th.
The Braves and the Dodgers are both in the National League, so I'm going to pump the brakes on that. But I think we got a decent shot to win a series, and we're going to give the Braves or the Dodgers a tough series if we get up against them. I believe that. We're playing hot. We got some, Assad and Wicks and Hendricks pitching well. We got Steele pitching well. We got a pretty deep bullpen. Wait a second.
This is about Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette was dropped in a keeper league.
Dude, why can I ever get lucky and be in these
you know what? When we talk about like these leagues and we just assume, I think, and I'm not trying to hype ourselves up when we say this, I think we have above average fantasy baseball knowledge. You have to remember that not everyone thinks the way we do, or things that we think are common sense. So there's no such thing as a dumb question, a dumb trade.
Yeah,
I can't believe I can't believe this person's available in this league. Should I add them? Because a lot of times you're basing it off of the people you're playing with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've had leagues where, like this year, I traded Jonah Heim for Framber Valdez, and it was accepted because Heim was having a great 2-3 months as a catcher, the best catcher in the league for the first couple months.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
Was it a 2-catcher league?
No.
Ooh, Marty committed robbery. Show me your hands, sir. Put them up. Tying you up. Art, we've talked a lot of positive things on the show, but we're going to end on a negative note for once and tell us who's bringing you pain and we're bringing to the dead.
I think we're going to be able to end on a couple chuckles at the end of this one, because I found some good stuff on the last mention, bring out your dead. So hopefully this ends positive, but we are winding down the season. If you've been done dirty by a player, you may have written him in already, but we are still being done dirty, especially in this crunch time, including players like Bryce Miller, brought a Broken Mariners fan, brought up by one doc. Broken Mariners fan put Bryce Miller just through the worst 5-inning 1 earned run performance I have ever seen from somebody. Now, what we see from Bryce Miller, he's still giving you that great K per walk. He's at 5 Ks per walk on the season. I think he might be tiring. He's also a guy who has a pretty sharp difference in his home road splits. But what I'm focused on are his first half to second half splits. The innings pitched in both are about the same. But while in the first half he gave up only a 601 OPS, he's up to a 762 OPS in the second half. Now, I think this might just be a guy who's not used to throwing this many innings, getting tired. And, Seattle's in the midst of a tough wild card battle. They need Bryce Miller pretty bad. Lukey D, our boy Luke bringing up Dylan Cease. This is the 3rd straight week Dylan Cease has been brought up, and for good reason. Dylan Cease is currently the 100th rated starting pitcher on Razzball Player Rater, which is not where he was drafted. He was in the top 10 starting pitchers by a lot of markers. His Ks are still strong, but his K percentage on the season is down almost 4% from last season. His home runs are up on the season. His walks are up. His fastball velocity is down on the season. However, one thing I will say is his expected ERA indicators indicate that he should be doing better. Tough to know where to rank him for next season. Will he still be drafted pretty high? The K's are pretty sweet. However, I don't know where you want to take a guy like Dylan Cease. He's kind of fallen into that Arizona Robbie Ray category now with what he's doing. But Lukey, I wanted to give you a little bit of feeling of community in this. I got some other Twitter users who are also feeling the Cease pain. Eddie writes, Dylan Cease is an effing fraud. I did not use the word that Eddie wrote, but Eddie's feeling it too, Lukey. And Will Garofalo, our buddy, says, what's up with this guy, Dylan Cease? So you're not the only one feeling the pain on Dylan Cease.
I almost included him too, but I realized that I had to change it up a little bit, which his changeup isn't good.
What would be the earliest you take him next year? I know we don't know. We haven't looked at anything, but like, is he?
I would take him close to pick 100.
Let me here. I think it may be a better question. SP2, SP3,
No.
SP4,
SP3 at best.
I think I'd go because of the ratio damage he'd do to you. Unless I was really confident about my ratios for my top guys, like say I started with a Cole or Strider, yeah, and I was able to get like a Louis. If I went like a pocket aces, I would get him as my third pitcher perhaps.
Okay,
because you'd just be locking in a ton of strikeouts there. But it's tough to know because what sort of roster construction does he fit on? And I think next season, what I'm really going to be focused on is roster construction.
I like the Robbie Ray comparison. I think that's interesting. That's really good.
I'd also be interested to see if Cease is on a new team.
Yeah, can we get this guy on a real real professional baseball team?
I feel like he has the makings to be a low end SP1 to go back if he was just on a team that developed pitching well, and there wasn't drama.
Absolutely. The culture and the White Sox, spoken about by ex-White Sox players, it's not good, and it's not easy to perform there. So maybe we'll get him on a new squad. The White Sox clearly did not want to give him up at the deadline or did not find the right deal for him. But they still have a lot of talent on that roster. Let's not mince words. That roster has a lot of top-end talent that has been underperforming for a few seasons now. Hopefully they can turn it around. Maybe, the new management. No one likes the new GM there. None of the Sox fans think they did a good job with that hire. And I'm not sure if anyone thinks Pedro Grifol is the answer at manager. So maybe they get a new manager next season. So we'll see. Maybe we can gin up some love for him. But where we're drafting him next year, I'm not sure ADP is going to matter to me with him. It's going to be about roster construction and whether or not I can stomach the walks he gives up, whether or not I can stomach the potential blow-ups he gives up. That's going to be where I want to take him because the strikeout's super juicy. David next brings up Andres Munoz. Andres Munoz just coming off the AL reliever of the month for August, gives up a big loss yesterday to Cincinnati. The Mariners were about to go up 2 games on the final wild card spot. Now they're just sitting 1 game up on Texas, on Toronto, just brought up when we were talking about Bo Bichette. So that loss is big. Mariners Geek at Baseball Geek 72 writes, please stop talking bad about Andres Munoz. He gave up a slow grounder to shortstop, a stolen base, and then a slow grounder to second base. That's exactly what he's trying to do. Y'all need to relax. Maybe true, but that was a big loss. It is possible that only a few players could have beaten out that play. One, of course, the one who did beat out that play, Ellie De La Cruz. So, not sure Munoz is one to worry about. Big loss, though. Go ahead, Mart.
I think so. I think he's because I have him in a saves holds league, and yesterday I play on Yahoo with him, and in the ERA, it said infinity. In whip, it said infinity. Yahoo didn't even bother telling me how bad he did. It just says infinity in all of the categories. And today, he in one inning, he gave up a run, two walks. He had 2 Ks, though, so the strikeouts are there, but you can't trust him right now.
So we're talking 2 straight days of subpar results. You know, he was out for a while earlier this season. Maybe he's wearing down a little bit as the season's gone on. Yeah, that's tough. Just coming off of that huge August reliever of the month for the American League last month.
That's how it goes with relief pitchers. It's a tough gig.
For sure. Next on, bring out your dead. Someone mentioned earlier, Eloy Jimenez, brought up by @CF Waco. Thanks for mentioning. Thanks for coming on. I think this is your first time bringing up somebody and bring out your dead. Come on back next week. Yesterday, Eloy Jimenez, 5 ground outs in a row. Someone at Diggler Softball thinks it could be because Eloy stands way up in the box. Maybe if he stood way back in the box, he would hit less ground balls. I looked this up. He has 54% ground balls.
Jesus.
Which is a ton. I was not aware of that feature of his profile. His home runs per fly ball are usually around 21, 22, 23%, down to about 16% this year, which has led to the fact that he has only 15 home runs on the season, even though he has more plate appearances than he's had in a few seasons. I'm not even sure.
I was going to say, that's so scary seeing that ground ball percentage at 54%. He's probably the last guy I want to hit ground balls because, one, he's the slowest dude ever because he only jogs everywhere. And then if he does run hard, he gets hurt. So he's somebody I will not be drafting next year. I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, he might be a dud, like only getting power because I don't even think he'll have good players to drive in.
Yeah, I mean, his batting average is always pretty solid, but the power's way down. You're not going to get any steals. The counting stats, what are you going to get there in that lineup? And the fact that he's injured all the time. When are we going to, I write here on this, when will we get a healthy Eloy Jimenez season? And what would we actually get from a healthy Eloy Jimenez season? This is another guy's, maybe it's a training thing for him. Maybe it's just his body. I don't know. Another guy who injuries have really hurt is brought up by Ted Morgan. Starling Marte. Nothing really to comment on here. He's always injured, but I thought it interesting that on August 30th, 2 different accounts mentioned how much was given up to trade for Starling Marte. Logan, a Diamondbacks fan, talking about how the D-backs traded Liover Peguero for 33 games of Starling Marte and what a bad deal that was. And then talking about how the A's traded Jesus Luzardo for just 56 games of Starling Marte. So if you are a fan of the Mets, what you want is for them to trade Starling Marte. So he needs to have a start of their good season next year. And maybe, Starling Marte can generate some good trade interest and you can pick up somebody pretty good. Because it seems like the Pirates and the Marlins are feeling pretty good about trading Starling Marte. I thought it interesting that 2 different accounts, unrelated, following 2 different teams, talking about how great it was that how much it stunk that their team traded for Starling Marte for only getting a few games of that guy. So there's a lot of pain from Marte going around. The funny thing that I love, there's this comedian who has this bit talking about how baseball announcers can be out there and all of a sudden when a Spanish player comes up to bat, they become Spanish. Dan Vogelback flies out to right field. And now for your Mets, Starling Marte.
That's so true.
It's so true. It's one of the best fantasy baseball comedy bits I've heard. It's just like the announcers just turn into these Latinos whenever a Latino player
They
comes
get
out.
into character.
Go ahead.
Can I just say, who is the player that I have tweeted about to bring out your dead most this year?
It's Dylan Cease, I think. or is it Stanton? I'm not sure.
I don't have Stanton anywhere. Think about the beginning of the season. Who did I complain about a lot?
Oh, my
Come on.
memory. My
Come
memory's
on.
gone.
Beginning of the season, who did I poo-poo on super hard?
Byron
didn't have
Buxton?
He didn't have a home run for a while.
Oh, it was
Jose Abreu.
Jose Abreu.
Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what he's doing tonight?
What?
3 for 5 with 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. Jose Abreu, I am glad I stuck by you. In a must-win playoff game, you have 19 points in ESPN standard point scoring. I can forgive you all that you have sinned me this year. And I hope everybody that tweets excessively about players that do you wrong, you are getting the same joy I'm experiencing right now.
At some point, may you get redemption from all the pain. Yes.
You just have to hold on to them for the entire season and they will reward you.
Yeah. So I got these 5. We're throwing on the cart. We'll be back next week for all your pain. Thanks.
There we go. There's four things in life: death, taxes, and people bringing you pain in fantasy baseball, no matter what. But that's going to wrap it up for us. Week 24 in the books. And you heard it from David. You heard it from the man himself. The sources say that he's going to be back next week. So he'll be back hosting, and it will be the Menage a Quattro. Right, Elsie?
I'll say, Doc, you have done an outstanding job coming in and hosting. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you get your flowers.
I appreciate it, and potting with you guys makes it easy. And it's fun, something I look forward to each week. And I was telling David, when you host, you look at the scores, or you look at the spreadsheets, you look at the players differently because you have to analyze everything rather than me just focusing on streaming for the weekend, which isn't even relevant now. But for Marty, for Art, for Elsie, I'm Doc. Good luck this week. We'll catch you guys next week for week 25.